This will be 182 boys for 7 minutes. Was this upon your request? Well, probably indirectly. When you got there, you went to see some particular individual, correct? Yes. I believe you asked me for a name. I have two names here. No, it's one name written twice, Don Campbell. When you went down there with the specific intent to examine a particular gun, which you believed was involved in an accident and a power supply. Is that correct? Yes. From what you can recall, that was the specific question that you put to this Mr. Don Campbell. Yes. And you believe he is the one that directed you to the particular work area? No, I suspect there was another man there, and Mr. Campbell had this other man direct me to the area and point out the power supply? Yes. And point out the gun? Yes. In regard to the power pack, which portion of the power pack did you look at in order to determine the model number and the serial number? I believe that was on a tag on the exterior of the power supply. This was a paper tag attached to the power supply unit. I don't recall, but I don't think it was. No, actually, as I think about it, I do recall it was a metal tag that was in some way attached or fastened to the supply unit itself? Yes. Do you recall how the tag was attached to the supply unit? I don't know exactly. It was flat to the surface so that it could not be easily removed. It must have had some sort of adhesive on the back. I know there were no screws. When you indicated a tag on the gun, was this also a metal tag? That's my recollection, yes. You indicated further that there were two areas where there were numbers tagged to the gun. I don't believe I did. I thought you indicated that there was one area that was totally obscured and there was a number there. I think you misunderstood. There was an identification tag on the gun which seemed to carry two numbers. Because of the amount of paint that was present, I wasn't certain of either of the numbers. I read them as best as I could. You're not quite sure whether there was a representative from Grayson there on that first occasion. Is that correct? That's correct. What makes you believe that there might have been? Well, I can remember being in the room with Mr. Kern at least once. I know he was there when we packed up the equipment. The point that makes my memory uncertain is that I recall him taking photographs of the room, and I was a little horrified, but I don't recall what day that was on. On the second occasion, which would have been January 20, that also took place on the same location. Yes. What took place on that date? That's the date, as I recall, that he and I together did only as much disassembly as was necessary to get the equipment into, I think it was, two cardboard cartons. He is who? Mr. Kern. That's the only thing that took place. I think you mentioned photographing. Yes, well, if there was photographing done on that day, it was Mr. Kern. I know I remember him taking photographs in the paint booth area at one time, and those are the only two possibilities. So, assuming that the photographing took place on the second occasion, do you recall what items he photographed besides the spray booth? No, sir. I stood near the door at the time, so I didn't watch what he was photographing. Did you observe him do anything other than take photographs? Well, as I say, he and I worked together in the minor assembly. Was there anything said about the flooring being slippery when Mrs. Shannon fell? Well, he, as I recall, discussed something about the tile floor. What did he say? Well, he wanted to know what type of a floor it was that she fell on. I told him it was a tile sidewalk in front of our office building. Have you ever been told by Mr. Foster that it was very slippery out there? I don't recall that. Has anyone in your employ or a visitor or anyone ever told you that tile is slippery? I can't recall that anyone has ever told me that. Have you ever found tile when wet to be slippery? No, I haven't. Has anyone ever told you that the tile immediately in front of the entranceway to the reception area of your main lobby is slippery? Has anyone ever told me that? That's right, not to my knowledge. Has anyone ever told you that they nearly slipped on that particular tile I have just described? No. Has anyone ever told you that someone slipped on that tile other than Mrs. Shannon? No. Is the tile ever waxed? Well, we have tile in many buildings. Is that waxed? Well, we put a solution on it. Is it your testimony that no tile is ever waxed? Well, I don't know whether you call it wax or not, but it is a preservative that is put on. This is in the interior of the buildings. The tile is in front of our offices, is never waxed and never had any solution put on it. Do you recall ever having a conversation with an employee of yours relative to the waxing of the tile? Oh, I may have, but you can't remember any such conversation. No, I cannot. All right, is the tile ever polished? Yes. When you said earlier something about this preservative, did you mean a polish or did you mean something different? Well, it is some sort of a chemical to make it shine and look nice to clean it. That's inside our buildings, not outside. This chemical that is put on the inside of the buildings to make it shine. Are you saying that you really don't know what that type of solution is? No, I do not. You don't know whether it is a wax or a polish, do you? No, I do not. What is the floor of the reception room made of? Tile. Is that same solution to make it shine also put on the floor of the reception room? Well, that I can't testify to because we have a maintenance company that comes in and takes care of the offices, and I don't know what they do.